I want to talk about this op-ed out of the New York Times by Elizabeth Hinton, Julie Kohler Hausman, and Velsa Weaver. And the op-ed was about, did blacks back the crime bill? So first, let me start here. You got to give a nod to Black Lives Matter. I don't care. The slogan, the organization, and the people on the ground. You got to give a nod to them because they have forced a conversation about the 1994 crime bill that, if not for them, we would just have accepted it as something that was a necessary evil, or not even a necessary evil. We would have looked at it as something that was just done and it made us safer. Right. But because of Black Lives Matter, we are actually having a conversation in earnest about the decision that was made to that really catapulted incarceration in the United States, particularly incarceration of African Americans, particularly for nonviolent drug offenders. And in the midst of this conversation, Hillary Clinton herself has admitted that the legacy of the 1994 crime bill is problematic. You have Bill Clinton, who doubled down on it because he didn't like being challenged by Black Lives Matter. And you have everyone trying to bring Bernie Sanders into the mix because he voted for the 1994 crime bill because of a piece of an amendment in it that he absolutely has been supporting for a very long time, the Violence Against Women Act, which was tied to the same bill. And so we have this entire relitigation of the 1994 crime bill. And one of the more nefarious, to me, one of the more nefarious talking points that have been used to defend the Clintons is the talking point that, you know, the 94 crime bill had to be okay because Black people supported it. And this is where the op-ed in the New York Times came in today, essentially saying, no, it wasn't that African Americans supported it. It was that white progressives, quote unquote progressives, particularly Bill Clinton and the team putting this and pushing this through, had selective hearing. And they only heard what they wanted to hear from the people they wanted to hear it from. They didn't listen to Jesse Jackson. If you saw the clip going around of Jesse Jackson today, basically laying it bare, saying that this piece of legislation could not pass if it came from a Republican. That's how horrible the legislation was. This is Jesse Jackson saying this at that time. And even some of the people who John Lewis also opposed this legislation. And even some of the people who said we do need to crack down on crime, but we also need full employment. We also need investments in education. We also need investment in better housing. We also need all of these other things that should complement any type of crackdown on crime. But instead of listening to Jesse Jackson, John Lewis, and the African Americans who supported the bill with caveats, they ignored all of the caveats and just gave them the crime portion of the bill. And so all of these people running around today, and it's in the saddest and I guess funniest, sad and funny, it's opposite side of the same coin, is you have Black people running around touting the support of African American leaders in the 90s for this bill, when in reality, many African American leaders stood up against the bill, and those that supported it only supported it with caveats. Sort of like Bernie Sanders supporting it with the caveat of removing the more nefarious effects that would be felt by the African American community. He expressly said this. He expressly said and pointed out the things in the bill that he saw was going to be detrimental, but never mind the nuance, never mind the context. Black people supported it and Bernie Sanders voted for it. So since Black people supported it, it's okay for Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. But because Bernie Sanders voted for it, he needs to take full responsibility of all the negative things in it. Do you see how the game is played? That's how the game is played. They simultaneously tried to absolve the Clintons by virtue of their Black cover, right? You cover them because you had some Black people who just like the guy from the Hamilton skit. with Bill de Blasio and Hillary Clinton, the colored people time joke, right? As long as that black brother was there to say, oh, it's okay, then obviously it's okay. And it's much to do about nothing. And likewise, because there were some black people who supported the 94 crime bill, then it must be okay for the Clintons to have not only supported, but actually signed it into law. But at the same time, Bernie Sanders, he voted for it, so he needs to apologize. This is the cognitive dissonance that's coming from these people on an everyday basis. And I love the op-ed from the New York Times because it exposes the fundamental lie that even though you had black people who supported the 94 crime bill, they supported it with a litany of caveats that were all ignored by your local friendly neighborhood white progressive. And that reminds me, every time you hear a black person or anybody, a white person for that matter, say, oh, yeah, but black people supported it. Think about Fox News. Think about how Fox News can go and get any black person to support anything. And so long as they get some black person to support the most ridiculously offensive thing on Fox News, well, then they're not racist and everything has to be okay. All right.